Oh, hello, Breakfast Club. I'm back from my holidays. Good to see you all, particularly hello to Sister Danger. Thank you for, welcome to the club. And picking up from Sister Danger yesterday, just about, depending on where you are in the world, we're looking at sort of generations, and particularly the current millennials. This idea that, why are millennials as they are, perhaps very PC, and so on. Perhaps whinging, a bit entitled. The idea that Sister Danger puts out is, well, of course they were going to turn out like that. Previous generations worked hard to make the world a better place. No doubt about that, the world has improved. If you look from, say, my generation to my father's generation, I mean, there's almost no comparison. My father growing up in England after the war, in Coventry, which have been, well, Coventry destroyed. There's no comparison. I think, though, it's perhaps not just about the absolute level that you're at, but also about the expectations that you have. Whoops, sorry. So we have expectations now of certain things which didn't exist. You would expect to have, I don't know, for instance, decent access to the internet. It's something which 20 years ago, 30 years ago, was inconceivable that you'd be, or almost inconceivable, you could walk around with high-speed internet access in your pocket. But it's become accepted as something we would want. I think also, if you go back to, say, the 50s, 60s, there was an expectation that things were going to keep getting better. I remember you had Macmillan, Harold Macmillan as Prime Minister, who could go out and say, "You've never had it so good," and get re-elected because people were like, yeah, that's true. And they expected things to keep getting better. I don't think that's true now. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about where the world is going. So things have improved, but also not necessarily universally. There's increasing inequality and so on in society. But also there's a lot more doubt now about jobs, wages, the environment, housing, and so on, cost of education. The idea of a job for life, I think, is pretty much gone, apart from a few, very few sectors. My dad pretty much for his entire life worked at one company, for close on 40 years. I'm in my mid-30s and I've already had, a few jobs. It's a and I would expect to change jobs again in the future. It's different now to how things used to be, and I think that matters. Yes, there's greater opportunity, but there's greater insecurity. Now, I think the other thing, perhaps, with millennials, or some millennials, is that it's a bit of a cotton wool generation. Yes, we previous generations have tried to improve the world for their children, tried to protect their children, but that can be too much, and you can end up wrapping them in cotton wool, you hiding them from the realities of the unpleasantness of the world or the rough edges of the world doesn't necessarily do them any favors. You do end up seeing some of these slightly bizarre things, like the case, I can remember, was a college somewhere where people were complaining about the sushi. Slightly bizarre. But I don't think that's the experience of most people at the moment. I think the sort of staying at home longer and so on is more a sort of function of the economic situation people are in. And so I think in many cases people are the experience of millennials will be at the moment is actually of a yes, in a world which is objectively more comfortable but has a lot of insecurity and so on in it. Anyway, I have to dash off to work. On to Thursday with Kate. See you all next time.